I was celebrating Mass and I thought to reflect on St. Paul's letter to the Colossians. The gospel is on a different. What is the gospel on today? Today's St. Peter Claver Day. He is an advocate for Black Americans. He's our patron saint. Um, he's a Jesuit from Belarus, I think, maybe Spain. I can't remember, but he is, he's a slave of slaves, he would say. He was um, dedicated to, during the I don't know, I can't remember, 17th century actually. So this is at the heart of, you know, slavery was very common. It's sad, but it was all over the world. And it wasn't just African Americans, it was a lot of other, Irish were um, slaves a lot too in Europe. England took a lot of Irish slaves, the Dutch, and everyone. It was commonplace. It's very sad. But Saint Peter Claver, he wound up dedicating his vocation as a Jesuit to the Black African American, not Americans, but Africans. I don't remember where, but he dedicated his whole life to them, and he would often claim the title "slave of slaves." So it's a wonderful story, and if you're, of an ethnic background, African or of color, regardless, there are some wonderful saints who were dedicated to African Americans, like Tolton. He was an African American priest in the 1850s. Peter Claver was dedicated to the slaves that, it was just sad, he took care of them by being with them 24/7. So he was like a missionary, and he gives a wonderful example about dedicating his life um, to those who were like living a destitute slave life. Slavery was their life, and so he entered into it as well. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus talks about praying on the mountain, and he spent all night time in prayer. He would leave and just go up the mountain, and he wouldn't come back until the next morning. And he'd call his 12, and they would come to him, and he would they would always run around him. They would follow, and they were constantly seeking his miracles, his teachings, the food. But in this particular gospel, in chapter 6, this great crowd still is following Jesus and his disciples. All over Judea and Jerusalem were following him. All over the coastal regions of Sidon and Tyre. And so they wanted to be healed. There was no medicine back then. It was so primitive. Doctors, there was no hospitals to go to. People had the most basic illnesses they died from. Infections. Those with limbs missing. Those with, different disabilities, couldn't walk. It was old school, way old school. So when there was a healer or a miracle worker, that was very rare, but it would arouse hope in all the destitute, all the people who were the poorest of the poor, the people that were neglected and abandoned. There was a class system during this time, and so this energy that Jesus carried with him, people just were drawn to him because he was constantly healing people, constantly. What we hear in the Gospels is nothing compared to the 3 years of daily ministry. You got to think of 1,000 days of ministry, and he healed people daily. He fed people, miracle worker daily. He didn't just take a break. There's a couple dozen great miracles in the Gospels, but really there were thousands that he did. And so people came to hear him speak, preach, and teach, and to be healed by him. And those who were tormented by demons, unclean spirits, they were cured as well. He's the ultimate exorcist. They all sought to touch him. And even there's stories of people with the great faith that, they couldn't get to him because the crowd was pressing on him. There was a woman who was hemorrhaging. She had a really rare, disorder where she, bled 24/7. It was like she had her, cycle all the time, and she did for over a decade. That's a hardship for a woman. I mean, it's so her faith drew her to say in the Gospels that if I only touch his tassel, I'll be healed of my infirmity. I'll be healed of my her hemorrhaging. And so, because power came from him and healed all, people saw it, and it made the crowds grow even more. So remember Jesus. If you want to be healed, ask through the intercession of Peter Claver today. If you want to be healed at all in any way, just say a Hail Mary or Our Father and ask God, the Holy Trinity, for healing. It will be given to you. I guarantee it. I promise it. And if you're not getting it, you say, well, Father Clayton promised. And I promise you, you will be healed. Guaranteed. God bless.